We good?
We're recording.
We're recording? Okay. All right, Taariq. So we've been talking about doing this for a little bit.
Yeah.
And when we met before, I think I told you that I decided to do this because I wanted to talk to immigrants and refugees and people that grew up in different religions and just general different backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
I find it interesting to be able to get outside my own bubble and see different worldviews. You cover kind of a wide grasp of a lot of that stuff. So why don't you start by telling us the different places that you've lived across the world?
Right. I was born in England. I came to the United States when I was about 1 year old, and I've lived in many different states.
Mm-hmm.
I've lived in Saudi Arabia, lived in India. So that's England, U.S., Saudi Arabia, and India. Those are the places I've lived.
Okay. And you said several different states throughout there's different cultures throughout the U.S. even
right.
for people that have traveled. So where have you lived in the U.S.?
Well, I've lived in California, Michigan, Connecticut, New York.
Okay.
Those are some of the places I've lived, yeah.
Yeah, no, those are, that does kind of cover the the range of cultures in America too.
East, West, and Midwest.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then, but also you have some unique insight into some different world religions.
Mm-hmm.
What religions are you acquainted with?
So I was born and raised as a Muslim,
Mm-hmm.
and my father's side of the family, they're all Muslims
Mm-hmm.
to this day. My mother was raised as a Seventh-day Adventist,
Okay.
and currently I am a Seventh-day Adventist.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that is a denomination of Christian,
Absolutely.
if I understand it right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my wife actually wanted to ask you this. How do a Christian and a Muslim wind up getting married?
Good question, because especially for Christianity,
Mm-hmm.
since I'm a Christian,
Sure.
and the Bible says not to be unequally yoked. So
Okay.
you're not supposed to marry a Muslim, and the Muslim's not supposed to marry a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
But short answer is, both of my parents at the time were young.
Mm-hmm.
They were in love with each other.
Mm-hmm.
They were not practicing their religion from
Mm-hmm.
their families,
Mm-hmm.
and they were just out there having a good time, living life. And religion wasn't a big thing in their lives.
Yeah, love
Yeah.
doesn't recognize religion.
Right.
Huh?
That's right. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So, what you said at the time they weren't practicing their religions. What then got them reinterested, or what drove them back into their religions?
And I tell people this, and that's a great question. Your upbringing always kicks in when kids come into the picture.
Mm-hmm.
So when my brothers and I were born, I have a twin brother
Mm-hmm.
and have another brother. He's 1 year older than us. When we came into the picture, then my father automatically, his instincts kicked in, saying, "Okay, I'm going to raise my kids as Muslims
Mm-hmm.
because I was raised as a Muslim."
Mm-hmm.
So this is a good pointer for those even thinking about marriage and who they're thinking about being with. You got to make sure you're on the same page,
Mm-hmm.
because when kids come into the picture, that's when things change.
Mm-hmm. This isn't necessarily a cultural question, but why do you think that is? Why is it that maybe we're not so concerned about our religion or our core principles, our values, when it's just us, but then as soon as you have offspring, all of a sudden it's really important for you to instill something in them? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Do you know why? Do you have any insight on that?
I don't, but I think it tells a lot of your upbringing
Mm-hmm.
and how those things are deeply rooted in you,
Mm-hmm.
and you just naturally want to give what you have received.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of hard to do something new
Mm-hmm.
unless you go through that new experience yourself.
Sure.
But I think ultimately in my father's heart, even though he was a young man and he was doing his thing, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
in his heart, he always believed in Allah.
Mm-hmm.
In his heart, he considered himself a Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
I talk to a lot of people today, and they would say that they're Christians,
Mm-hmm.
but they may not necessarily go to church a lot, or
Sure.
they may not, be quote unquote practicing
Mm-hmm.
Christianity as they should,
Mm-hmm.
but they still identify as Christians.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So yeah, when you bring kids into the picture, then you kind of revert back to what you know.
That's right.
Simple enough.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
So do you remember, was there something that happened when you were young that your dad was like, I'm raising a Muslim, or was it from the time you were born that was your way of life?
Ever since I can remember, that was my way of life.
Okay.
We came into the picture. Literally, I was 5 years old, and my father had me and my brothers lined up, and we would have the Arabic alphabet in front of us, and we're rocking back and forth, and we're memorizing the alphabet. And
Okay.
so he was very strict in teaching us how to read Arabic so that we can memorize our prayers in the Quran and be young Muslims.
Yeah.
I mean, my name is Taariq, but in Arabic they call me Taariq.
Okay.
My brother's name is Javid. And my twin brother, his name is Adam, but in Islam, Adam is a prophet.
Okay.
My sister's name is Aisha and Zaina. And my father's name is Muhammad.
So, do
So, yeah.
so does your name have a Muslim meaning?
Yes.
What does it mean?
My name actually means morning star.
Okay.
Yeah, the way it's spelled is Taariq. So I bring up my name because my father's very serious about his religion, to name all his kids with Muslim Islamic names,
Yeah.
So that instinct, that upbringing kicked in immediately. Yeah. For him.
Yeah. So, and how did your mom just kind of go along with this? Was her Christian religion not as strong when she was growing up, or why was it all aligned with Muslim at the time?
For me, this is where the rubber hits the road. We can grow up in homes that are Christian, but ultimately we got to meet God for ourselves. And for me, this was my mother's experience. She grew up in a Christian home, going to church, singing songs, but to really have a heart one-on-one with God, she never had that.
Oh, okay.
So her kids, she went along with it because she wasn't going along with anything else. She wasn't with her religion. She wasn't serious about it. And come to find out, she really didn't have that deep experience like her mother had, my grandma had, And so, but my mom would get one. She would get an experience.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll get to that.
That's what turned my whole life around. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I think we're going to get
Yeah.
more into that later in the story chronologically.
Yeah.
So I do have a question. I heard recently, I don't know, maybe this was a matter of months or a year ago, that Islam is actually an Abrahamic religion.
Yeah.
Can you explain that to me?
Well, Jews, Christians, and Muslims all look to Abraham, and Abraham is one of the prophets. And as far as Islam goes, Ishmael is his son.
Okay.
And for Christians, it's Isaac. The promised seed was Isaac, but Ishmael is the one that's highlighted in Islam. And so when it's stated that it's an Abrahamic religion, there's that common ground with all the three major religions finding its root in Abraham.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it tracks itself historically back to Abraham.
Does
Islam study anything out of the Old Testament, or?
They do believe in the writings of the Torah and the writings of the...
explain what the Torah is.
So the Torah would be the books of Moses.
Okay.
Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy.
Okay.
So in Islam, they do revere a lot of the prophets. So they believe Jesus is a prophet. David, Moses, Abraham,
Okay.
Elijah, John the Baptist. So
they even followed all the way into the New Testament.
yes. So there are a lot of, because they revere Jesus as a prophet.
Really?
Jesus is a prophet, and they call him Isa. Isa is the prophet in Islam.
Okay.
But for us Christians, Jesus is more than a prophet. He's the Son of God. He's God.
Yeah.
So so there are a lot of similarities there in that sense with Islam.
So what's all the fighting about between Jews, Christians, Muslims?
That's a deep question.
I mean,
Yeah.
really, I just always
Yeah.
thought it was they read two different books, they believed two different things, and, ideology fights back and forth. And it wasn't until recently that I realized, actually, they're all reading at least parts of a
Yeah.
lot of the same information.
Here's the beautiful thing about Christianity. You're not going to find a religion where God gives up himself and dies for humanity. For the Muslim and the Jew, they don't accept the divinity of Christ.
Okay.
So those are two major roadblocks. Christianity came out of the Jewish Judaism.
Sure.
You know, it's the same Bible. The New Testament used the Old Testament, Paul and Christ, Jesus. But it's a rejection of Jesus. To keep it simple and short, Islam and the Jews reject Jesus. So that's the root of the fighting, so to speak, you know, just right to it. You reject the Son of God, then you totally are against Christianity. And that's, you know, without going to the history between Jews and Christians for many years, and then Muslims and Christians for many years. But, you know, when you read the Quran, it's very clear that Jesus is not the Son of God. In fact, the Prophet Muhammad takes the place of Christ in the minds of Muslims. He is the most revered prophet. He's the greatest messenger of Allah, you know. He's the greatest. So in many aspects, Muhammad replaces Christ.
Okay.
In Islam. So it's a very deep-rooted thing there. Yeah.
So, and I guess before we get too deep into this, maybe we should tell people some of your credentials, because you're not, I mean, yeah, you grew up with these two different worldviews, but you've actually been to some more religious training?
Yeah. So I actually have my bachelor's in theology. I went to Pacific Union College in California, in Napa Valley. And then I went to a seminary at Andrews University in Barron Springs, Michigan.
Okay.
Yeah, and I got my master's in divinity there. So yeah.
Okay, so you're not just spouting your opinions. You have some pretty solid training.
Yeah.
On this.
Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned that for Muslims, Muhammad kind of takes that place of Christ. Do they believe is he just a prophet, or is he more than, is he their way to salvation? What is he to Islam?
No, you talk to a Muslim, they'll tell you he's their prophet.
Okay.
They would not tell you that he's their God or anything like that. But from my vantage point, my personal experience and the way I see things, he definitely is revered. And he is how, in my opinion, he takes the place of Christ. And how much he is revered, and not just what he has written, but even his very lifestyle, how the prophet dressed and ate and how he carried himself. Those types of things are how he grew his beard and all these things. All those things are looked upon as what a Muslim should follow. That's the goal you got to reach. So as Christians, we want to be like Jesus. We want to follow Christ. That's what a Christian is, a follower of Christ. But in Islam, it's very much so, let's be a follower of the Prophet Muhammad.
Okay. So, he's not just a prophet, but he is the prophet that they should model their life after.
That's the word I'm looking for. Right. Yeah.
Okay.
And I've seen that, you know, just from my personal experience, from what I've heard, what I've seen, what I've read. It's very much, the Prophet Muhammad is very much a substitute for Christ. Yeah.
And are all of his teachings found in the Quran?
The Quran, and so in Islam they have writings called the Hadith, and these are the companions of the Prophet who accompanied him, and they would write certain things of his life, kind of what I was alluding to, his lifestyle, and they would write. So
Christians would think in terms of these are his disciples.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And they would write basically about his lifestyle, the things that he did, some of other sayings that he has said. And I've read some of them that talk about some of the prophecies. I'm into eschatology or end time kind of things. And so some of the end time kind of things that Islam talks about, the sayings of the prophets, the life of the prophets, of the prophet, these would be the hadiths. And but the Quran is the sacred textbook of Islam, and it's basically the angel Gabriel was speaking to the Prophet Muhammad in the cave, and he was writing down what the angel was telling him to write down. And so there's similarity there with Christianity too, because you got the angel Gabriel involved, and that's an angel that's in the Bible.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So a lot of correlation there, a lot of overlap.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Right.
And you said from your earliest memories, you remember, rocking back and forth, learning the alphabet. So I'm assuming, is it mosque that you attended growing up?
Yeah, I did. I went
And
to
this
the
was,
mosque.
where were you at this
I
time?
was in Hartford, Connecticut.
Okay.
So I was really young. So I learned how to read Arabic. I don't know how to read Arabic now anymore. I've memorized one surah or one prayer that I still remember from a kid. And but yeah, I grew up in Connecticut, and my father, he taught us how to read. We went to the mosque, and we call it the masjid too.
Okay.
And so we grew up there, just a young kid. My father was always there, so we grew up there, and it was a fun life, growing up. And the brothers at the mosque really, they treated us nice. It was a great community to be in, and but that was my life. That's what I knew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, tell me something that was really left an impression on you, or maybe the best lesson you learned from growing up in that time in the mosque.
In retrospect, as I look back, I do appreciate the togetherness, the support, the community. But I would say the most thing, and maybe this is just not really related to Islam, but just my father, just having my father in my life. Because those were years that I had my father in my life. And when my parents divorced, I didn't have my father in my life for many, many years, for pretty much all my life. So those memories hold a sweet spot in my heart because my dad was there,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, but you mentioned the closeness, the gatherings. It sounds like a real sense of community.
Absolutely, yeah.
Is that something that's very common across Islam?
Yeah, from my experience and always with my father, I've been to the masjid in Saudi, in England. There's always been a sense of community and brotherhood and support and love and fellowship that I really appreciated with my Muslim brothers and sisters, and that
Okay.
that experience of mine was always it was good,
Yeah,
very
yeah.
good, yeah.
So this is my third episode. I've done 2 others, and both times, first question I asked was, "Hey, what do you miss most about your native country?" And both of them said the food.
Yeah.
Now, so were these gatherings, were these communities, this getting together, this brotherhood, was it often around gathering around the table around food, or was that not the culture?
Oh yeah. See, my father is Indian. Okay.
Okay.
So his side of the family, good Indian cooking. And we grew up sitting around on the floor. We didn't sit on the table. We sat on the floor.
Oh, okay.
And big platters of chicken and rice or some lamb or some samosas. And we don't use forks and spoons and knives. Everybody uses their hands. And we eat with our hands. We have
Really?
roti. We break bread together. So that's how I grew up eating. But not until my parents separated, then, I don't eat like that anymore.
Do you miss it?
I do.
Yeah.
And there are times when I visit my father and, certain types of foods, Indian foods, I still use my fingers.
Really?
And hands. Yeah. Certain foods like with roti and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't eat it any other way except my fingers.
Yeah.
You got to get that sauce on the plate. Yeah. So.
I had Indian food for the first time, I don't know, maybe a month ago. I had never had it. Went to a place here in town. I had some friends that, they've tried several places, and they said this is one of the really good ones, and I loved it, man.
That's good.
Yeah, I loved it. A lot of rice. I had it was like a butter chicken curry or something like that, with maybe some garlic naan or something like that.
Oh yeah, I love that.
It was delicious.
Yeah, it's delicious. Yeah.
So I didn't realize you were Indian.
Yeah. So my father's Indian, my mother's Jamaican.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. And then so when is it that you went to Saudi? How old were you when you went to Saudi?
So I was I want to say I was 8 years old.
Okay. And what led up to that?
Yeah. My mom became a Christian.
Okay. Let's
Yeah.
hear that story.
So we were in Hartford, Connecticut, and it was at this time that my mom was watching how we were being raised, and it struck her kind of hard because she remembered her upbringing and how she grew up. And my father was very strict in teaching us Islam. He would have his sandal or slipper out there, and he would like spank us if we got the word wrong. And So he's very strict, and she didn't like that. And she had a coworker at her job who was a Seventh-day Adventist, and she found an old book of hers called Steps to Christ. She read
And
that
your
book.
mom grew up Seventh-day Adventist?
She grew up Seventh-day Adventist.
Okay.
So basically, she found this book in her garage. She was looking for something. She found this book. And she read this book called Steps to Christ. And when she read it, it just melted her heart, and she fell in love with Jesus. And all her upbringing and all that started to come back. But now it was different. She had a coworker who was a Seventh-day Adventist.
Okay.
And this older lady began to mentor her and help her and guide her on the path as she was having this heart change.
Okay.
And so she went through this conversion experience now as a young mom with 3 boys and then 2 girls. And she ended up making the decision that she wanted to get baptized in the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Hartford, Connecticut.
Okay.
When she made that decision, my father was really upset about that, and he threatened her life. He showed her a knife and threatened her life and says, if you get baptized, I'm going to run this knife through you. And my mom, that next morning on Saturday, we go to church on Saturday.
Seventh-day Adventist.
Seventh-day Adventist. She got us all dressed. I was about 8 years old. And my father walked out of the house just really quiet like a little lamb. He left after he made the threat the previous day. And she went to church. She got baptized, and we all watched her get baptized. Ever since that moment, everything changed. The dynamics in my house were different. And so my mother started to teach us about God, Christ, the Bible, when my father would go to work. And then he would come back, take us to the mosque, and now you got this holy war going on in the house. You got Islam and Christianity, this fight going on. And so my father, this was really a spiritual battle. And my father was losing control as far as influence and religion-wise.
Yeah.
Because my mom was very excited about Christ.
Yeah.
And, when you're excited about something, you want to tell the ones you love first about what you're excited about.
Well, and what was your, from your perspective, you're getting to kind of have a foot in both worlds here. What was that a positive thing for you? Did you enjoy that? I mean, it sounds like there was some really strong tension that I'm sure you didn't like, but did you like having access to both worldviews?
As a young kid, it was hard for me to decipher what was going on.
Okay.
At that stage, I just remember being excited for my mom because she was excited, to find Christ and have this new religion. That tension would build.
Yeah.
And it would eventually cause my family to separate.
And did you understand what was going on with your mom, or did you just see her happy and excited?
I saw her happy. I was just a young kid at the time.
Okay.
I don't think I really truly understood until later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And that led to, you said there's a spiritual battle going on. What did that lead to?
So, my mom, she, it was my father, actually. He was at the mosque.
Okay.
A lot of the guys were coming back from Afghanistan, and they were coming to the mosque. This was around 1989. There was a war between Russia and Afghanistan.
Okay.
And there was a holy war, jihad. So a lot of them
explain. I'm sorry to interrupt, but some of these terms, can you? I've heard jihad before, but what does that mean?
Well, basically, it's a holy war that's going on, and when the Russians invaded Afghanistan, Afghanistan is a Muslim country.
Okay.
And so a lot of Muslims from all over were going over there to fight in this holy wars to help support their Muslim brothers. So when I was young, there were guys going to the masjid who were coming from Afghanistan, and they were coming from this war experience. And if there were brothers that wanted to go and help support, they would go. I know my father wanted to do that. I know this was in his heart, but he had 5 kids. There was a guy who had a business in Saudi Arabia, and he was involved in Afghanistan and stuff. And he invited my father. This is from what I've heard. I was young.
Well, so before we go there, how were these guys? You said guys were coming from Afghanistan to the U.S., and it sounds like they were kind of recruiting.
Right.
How were they? What was that process? I mean,
I don't know the process in detail.
Okay.
I just remember guys coming into the mosque.
Okay.
And what I can say is that this was a pretty big war back in those days. And Afghanistan had a lot of support against the Russians. I mean, even our government supported Afghanistan against the Russians.
Yeah.
So this was a very big conflict for Islam, and a lot of Muslims all over the world were supporting Afghanistan.
So did, I guess, Muslims around the world kind of feel like that their way of life or their religion itself was being attacked?
Yeah.
I don't know what the war was about.
You know
but-
what? From out, like I said, I don't know too much because I was pretty young.
Sure.
But from looking back at it, this was an assault on their way of life,
Got it.
on Islam, on a lot of those things, and to help just to support their Muslim brothers in their fight. A lot of Muslims did go.
Got it. Okay, I'm with you now. All right, you said somebody had a business in Saudi Arabia and talked to your dad.
Yeah, he had a business in Saudi Arabia, and he talked to my father, and he enticed him and says, "Hey, you can bring out your family to Saudi Arabia, and that way you can control this Christian wife of yours. And you come to Saudi Arabia in 1989, as a woman, you have no rights." And my mom prayed about this, and she prayed, and she felt God was leading her to go to Saudi Arabia. And she, I don't think she was fully aware of what she was getting into.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. How could you be?
Yeah, it was intense. So we were in church, our last day in church. It was Faith Church in Hartford, Connecticut. They had a farewell for us. Somebody made this big poster card, like you do at school, those school projects. And they drew this picture of an airplane, and it was an airplane flying from New York, JFK Airport, to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And under that airplane were these big hands, like the hands of God, to guide us on our journey. And they gave us a Bible, the church did. And it was a big Bible, white Bible, and on the front it had like a picture of Jesus on the front of the Bible. And my mom, she was a colporteur at that time, so she was selling Christian books.
Oh, okay.
She had a lot of different Christian books, and she decided to bring all these Christian books to Saudi Arabia. You can't do that.
So what do you mean? It sounds like a dumb question, but explain to me what it means when you say you can't do that. Because to me, I've only ever grown up in the U.S. I can have any book that I want.
Right.
I can say anything that I want.
Right.
And without really any fear of any kind of retribution. What do you mean you can't do that?
In 1989, I mean, you can't bring Christian literature into an Islamic country, especially how my mother packed suitcase after suitcase with Christian literature. And she was wrapping up books under sweaters and clothes. They would take that as you're trying to smuggle in Christianity. You're trying to convert. You're trying to work your religion in and proselytize their country. And bringing in all that literature is an offense that could be punishable by death. They don't play games. So my mom was bringing all these books because we were moving over there. This wasn't a vacation. This wasn't a short trip. We were going to live there. So a family of 5, you can imagine how many suitcases we had as a big trip.
Yeah.
And she loaded those suitcases with books. And something told her the day that she traveled, dress like a Muslim woman.
Do you think at that time she realized what she was walking into, or no?
Absolutely not. No.
Okay. Wow.
I think my mother was just naive and just ignorantly, she did not understand. But she felt impressed to dress like a Muslim woman.
Okay.
And she'd never dressed like one. She's a Jamaican lady. She's not going to cover up nothing. So, but on the plane, she wears a hijab. So she's covered up except her face. She's all in black.
Okay.
And we get to the airport. The first suitcase gets on the conveyor belt. This old school, 1989. A little conveyor belt comes. And one of the guards, he got like an AK-47 or something. They open the suitcase, and they pick out this big bundle of something, unwrap it, and there's Jesus staring at everybody in the airport on that big Bible. he has this concerned look on his face, and he begins to call the rest of the security over. Now there's 5, 6 guys with AK-47s, and they're looking mad, and they're looking at the Bible, and they're looking at us.
How's your mom reacting at this?
She is just calm and cool standing next to my dad.
Really?
Yeah, she's just chill. I mean, she has to be.
Yeah.
I mean, and these guys are looking at my father, and they're looking at the Bible. They're looking at my father, and they're looking at the Bible, and they're confused. They're speaking in Arabic. We don't know what they're doing. We don't know what they're saying.
Talking to your dad?
They're talking to each other.
Okay, I got it.
And they've said a few words to my dad, and they're talking to each other. Then, finally, one of them just starts laughing. Like, ha, ha, ha. Everybody's good. Everybody's good. Go, 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 go. And they closed the suitcase, and they let us go. We couldn't figure it out, except when they looked at us, they saw my father looks like a typical Muslim man. He got his big beard. They see my mom next to him. She looks like an obedient Muslim wife. She's dressed, you know.
Yeah.
And you got 5 little obedient Muslim kids. So they're looking at a Muslim family, and they're looking at a Bible. And I guess they came to the conclusion, we don't know why they have this Bible here, but they're Muslim. We'll let them go. But if they would have opened up suitcase number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, we would have been busted.
Because they were all full.
They're all full of Christian books, you know? So
you said it was punishable by death.
that's what I heard. My mom told me that, and back in 1989, I went to Saudi Arabia again in 2007. A lot has changed from 2007 from 1989.
Okay. Like what?
The country's a lot more westernized. That was back in 2007.
Okay.
So I can imagine now in 2022. For instance, when back in 1989, women are not allowed to drive.
Okay.
From what I've heard in recent news, they were starting to have women, giving them the right to have licenses and be able to drive. 1989, absolutely not.
Okay.
In 1989, you had, you had to cover up fully as a woman. In 2007, when I went back, some of the young teenagers and younger girls were now taking off their headscarf and starting to show some of their hair. To them, that's big. It's like you're walking around half naked over there. You're showing your hair, you know. But
do you have any insight as to what's driving that westernization?
I would say the internet. I would say media, television, entertainment. That's exactly what's happening. When I was there in 2007, this is before I was a Christian. Now, I used to have my hair in cornrows. I had my chain, my baggy jeans on. I was a big-time Patriots fan. I had a big baggy jersey on and my thugged-out swag. I was walking in the mall in Saudi Arabia. And as I was walking in there, I used to rap and freestyle, and that was my thing, make beats, music.
Okay.
I was walking in the mall, Saudi Arabia, and I'm not going to tell you how I got into the country. I wasn't supposed to be there at this time, but I was there.
Okay.
And I walked in the mall, and I stopped because outside the mall, I saw these guys. They were dressed kind of like me. But I was listening to them, and I was like, they're Arabic, right? They're speaking Arabic.
Yeah.
But the way they were talking to each other, laughing, just the very spirit, their swag, so to speak.
Yeah.
I was like, if I wasn't in Saudi Arabia, I would think that those guys are from any street corner in the United States, maybe New York or something.
Yeah.
My stepmom came to me, and she tapped me on the shoulder, and she said, Taariq, we got MTV out here too. But, it hit me because I said, wow, these guys are watching MTV. Now they're thugged out,
Yeah,
I go in the mall. They got McDonald's. They got KFC. They got like some Taco Bell. And I'm like, whoa, this is like, it's different from 1989. And like I said, the young ladies were now taking the headscarves off.
Yeah.
Showing some hair, you know, so. And now that was 2007. So, internet, social media, entertainment, a lot of our movies are over there. And it's really not just Saudi Arabia. The whole world is kind of coming together because of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting. All right. So let's, that's 2007. Let's rewind to 1989.
Yeah.
Got off the plane. You made it through security.
Yeah.
Luckily your mom decided to wear the
Muslim outfit.
the outfit.
Yeah.
What happens from there?
We go to Saudi Arabia, and we're living in a place called Dammam. So actually, I'm trying to recall. There's a place named Jeddah and Dammam and Riyadh, and I think the first place we were in was Dammam. And while we were there, my father quickly had his job with his connect that he met in Connecticut, and he's working there. And my mother is in an apartment in Saudi Arabia with all 5 of her kids. She has no rights.
Okay.
She can't leave the house unless her husband is there. And if you do, you got to cover up. Typical scene to see a guy and a bunch of kids and a couple wives walking behind him. You know, the man he rules. He's the chief there. My mom couldn't even write a letter to her loved ones, couldn't receive a letter, couldn't make a phone call, couldn't receive a phone call.
Really?
Didn't speak Arabic television. And when it's prayer time, they'll turn off the TV for you because it's prayer time. And you hear the adhan, that's the call to prayer, on speakers everywhere you go. You could be shopping in the mall.
Yeah.
They will close the mall. They got a gate, close the store. It's time for prayer. So the whole country is like that. And so the only thing that my mom had in Saudi was when we were home, she would open out one of those books that she brought, and she would have worship with us and teach us about God. And that was her time. And that's all she had.
Yeah. So how's she handling all this? I mean, you know, other than this is her time. She pulls out one of her books. This is what she gets. How is she handling all of this? That's a vastly different lifestyle than.
Absolutely. It was very challenging for her, you know, but she was so motivated for Christ. She loved to teach us about God. And she told me and my brother, she said, you know what? We're in Saudi Arabia, but you guys are undercover agents for God here. And I don't know if you're familiar with any stories of the Bible. There's a story in the Bible about the 3 Hebrew boys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They were in the fiery furnace. And I was Shadrach, my brother was Meshach, the other one was Abednego. And we were undercover agents for God.
Yeah.
I'm 8 years old. I took that seriously.
Yeah.
I was on a mission.
Yeah. Well, I remember when I was 8 and we'd play baseball in the backyard, and it's like I get to be Mike Piazza, and I'm King Griffey Jr.
Right.
Yeah, you got a little different story.
Yeah. Oh man, don't get me wrong. I still love my Transformers and He-Man and all that stuff. But being in Saudi Arabia, we're a long way from home. Environment was different.
Yeah,
it was desert. We're in a desert.
Yeah. So you said when you were still in the States, I asked about having one foot kind of in 2 worlds, and you said you were a little too young to realize what was going on. Did you start to realize it at this point?
Absolutely.
And what was that like from your perspective? Did you like that? Did you did you feel like you were doing something wrong with your mom every day? What was that like for you?
You know what? We knew we were in a different place physically in Saudi Arabia. But I think spiritually, we also went to a different place. There was a bond that we had with our mother that was deep in Saudi. And just that time in worship and prayer is a time, even I'm 41, I never forget those times. It's been a part of who I am to this day.
Did it feel like it was you and your mom versus the world, kind of?
It did kind of feel like that.
Yeah.
And it felt like not just me and my mom, but it felt like God was with us. Against the world. And it was really a time that I look back knowing that was really kind of what cemented who I am today, those times. Because one thing I figured out is that my father tried to control this Christian wife of his by bringing her to that Muslim country. But it backfired on him because you can't put God in a box. And what really happened is that he lost control of the situation. And he even acknowledges that later on in life. He tells me, he says, you know what? I realized that I was fighting against God.
He says he was fighting against God.
Right.
And is your father still Muslim?
He is.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a very devout Muslim.
So does he, I guess when Muslims talk about Allah and we talk about, or Christians talk about God, are they talking about the same force?
Some
Same
people
being?
think it that way. Some people do, because they'll say Allah is just the Arabic name for God.
What do you think?
No, I don't think they're the same.
Okay.
No.
Can you explain that?
Well, because where do you find out about Allah? You find out about him in the Quran.
Okay.
That's what tells you about Allah and who he is. And the same book denounces Christ. And Allah's, his personality, his character is different from the God of the Bible. You see, the God of the Bible gave himself that we can have everlasting life.
Okay.
But in the Quran, there's no such concept. God becoming a man, God humbling himself, to die the death on the cross. There's no such concept. In fact, in Islam, they would say that Jesus was not on the cross, that Allah actually put a fake guy up there, an imposter. So the crucifixion did happen, quote unquote, but it wasn't really Jesus up there. It was an imposter, and Allah at the last second took Jesus away and put some fake guy up there. So Allah, in my estimation, cannot be the same as God the Father, because the Bible says God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. So Allah is not the same as God the Father in the Bible, because he didn't give his only begotten Son.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is fascinating to me.
It's two different. A lot of people say it's the same God. It's just but to me,
different word.
It's just a different
But
word
for
for the
you,
same.
it's not.
It's not. It's not, because that different word describes a different being altogether, different story, different character, different motives. He's different.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
So this time you're living in Saudi Arabia, and it sounds like things are really strict. What is there anything that you learned in Saudi Arabia that you loved about Saudi Arabia, that you loved about the culture, or really? I know the time with your mom, you said that's really impressionable on you, but I'm digging deeper into the culture of
Saudi Arabia. Yeah.
Is there anything that you really loved about it?
I'll say it like this. I've lived in I just came back from California a couple weeks ago, or maybe last week or something like that. And when I was there in the LA area, compared to living here in Iowa, it's different.
Yeah.
The culture,
Yeah.
the people, the traffic.
Oh, yeah, I'm well aware.
It's totally different.
Yeah.
And especially for me having a family now, and a lot of the way the world is going right now, I really appreciate more of a slow-paced life.
Okay.
Especially for my kids in that environment. And that's one thing I do appreciate about Saudi Arabia when I was there. I would say it's very much on the extreme side when I was there. However, how they value families and influence and environment for children.
Yeah.
And how society is kind of governed as a whole. I feel like our society over here, as far as morality goes, we're going definitely speeding down the wrong direction.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's becoming very toxic. And for me, it's even more noticeable after I've lived in the Midwest for a significant amount of time now.
Right.
When I go to Florida and I go to California or New York, I'm like, okay, we visited. I'm ready to go back home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
So something you said there made me think. You've talked about living in Saudi Arabia, and the father's the king, and
Right.
he's the ruler. He everything runs through him, which sounds like that's kind of a negative view, and maybe it is. I've never lived in that type of situation. Is there a positive side of it to where, because you talked about their importance of family, that the father is really involved in kids' lives,
Right.
Where I don't know the statistics, but in the U.S. we're seeing more and more divorce. We're seeing more and more, fathers not being involved in stuff like that. Thankfully, I didn't grow up. My dad was always around.
That's good.
Is there that positive aspect of that culture there? I guess
I would say,
does that question make sense?
Yes, it does. Yes,
Yeah.
it does. And I think it definitely yes.
Okay.
Short answer, yes.
Yeah.
How they do it though, I wouldn't agree with it per se, how they treat women. I think things
Meaning
have
the
changed.
dictatorship
Absolutely.
style.
And yeah, more, the women are, they don't have rights and freedoms.
Or didn't. It sounds like it's transitioning.
It's transitioning slowly. I mean, when I was there in 2007, I'll give you an example. My sister, she was about 14, 13 years old, maybe even 12. My brother was younger than her. He was 8 years old.
Okay.
My half-brother, and I'm talking about my half-brother because
Okay.
my half-sister and half-brother, because my father remarried and he had a family in Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
So I went back there to visit them. And I'm in the house. This is when I was all thugged out going to the mall. But I went to their house, and me and my brother, my little brother, he's like, come on, Taariq, you're my big brother. Let's play with me. And I'm fighting him, wrestling with him. And we're walking out the house, kicking the soccer ball. We go out to the street. But then my sister's still in the house. And in the house, it's not just like a front yard like how we have and just open. You got walls. It's like a little compound.
Okay. Yeah.
So as long as my sister, who's like 13, she's just like a 13-year-old little girl, right? But she can't leave the compound unless she covers up. So immediately, me and my brother, it's no big deal. We're just kicking the ball in the street. But for her, it's like, I'm like, Amira, you going to come? She's like, no, I can't go out there. And immediately just hit me. I got angry. Because I'm like, man, she's just a young little girl. Why can't she go out to the street?
Yeah.
Those are the things that, we take for granted over here. You don't even think about that.
Yeah.
But for me, because my sister, I got upset. Having said that, though, it's on the extreme end over there. But there is great value in family and fathers and mothers. And yes, in my estimation, they're very overprotective about that, too much so. But there's a principle there that still needs to be protected. And that is very much diminished in our country. Families are under assault. The role of a father and the role of a mother, the lines are blurred. And the importance of a father figure, and me that didn't have it. Oh, I understand it now, and I want to be there for my son. And I see how he looks at me, and I want to be there, a good example for him. And so I love to teach what I know from my personal experience and what I'm learning about families and the role of a father as a priest, as a provider, as a protector. And spiritually, I'll give him the prophet role to give God's word. Very important.
You said overprotective. Is the women's dress, the outfit, is that a protection? I guess what I'm getting at is what's the there's got to be a reason behind this stuff, right? I mean,
right.
There's got to be some sort of principles or something.
Absolutely. So it's like I said, I agree with the principle, underlying principle there, which is modesty.
Okay.
Modesty, and in their estimation, when they look at us in Western society, they'll say, okay, you're a Christian society, but yet, your women are like half naked. You guys got all kind of like LGBT things going on. You got all this stuff going on, but yet you're a Christian nation. And so me personally, the Bible teaches modesty. Islam teaches modesty as well.
Sure.
And not saying you got to cover up your whole, just showing your face, but modesty in looking decent, I think it's very much appropriate. And I think it's very much needed in our society.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair.
Absolutely. Yeah, especially for the kids growing up. I mean, it says a lot. I don't think people understand the significance of dress. When you, I look at your teachers. Teachers look professional, and a dress says a lot about somebody, and how you carry yourself. Before you even speak, you're communicating.
Sure.
And so that principle there goes a long way. Yeah. And I've always said this too as well. Even as a guy who was out on the street, and I would try to get at a lot of women, and even in the back of my head in those days, when I would see a woman that was covered up and that was modest and that valued herself, in my mind, that woman was always more attractive There was something mysterious about her. Because she valued herself, it made me want to know who she is even more, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's another thing, you know, that women probably don't even really pay attention to, but it's powerful.
Sure. Well, that's I learned a lot in that tangent we took there. But let's circle back to the
Right.
story. It sounds like at the time, Mom was teaching you during the day. You know, Dad, I don't know if he knows that's going on or not during the day, but you're going to mosque. What you said, this battle's getting, you know, this divide's getting wider. What happens from there?
Well, you know, excuse me. My father's going to work at this time. My mom is with the kids at home. We're not going to school or anything at this time. And she's doing worships with us, teaching us more about God. And my father, one time, as she was doing that, my brothers and I would always look out the window and to see if our father was coming home. And when he would come home, we would pack up all the books, hide them under pots, pans, beds, whatever, throw the football and act like we weren't doing anything. This went on for a period of time. And but one time my father didn't come the front way, the normal way. He came from the back. And so we were in the middle of worship.
You think he did that on purpose?
Yeah, absolutely. I can never forget this. It's one of those memories I never forget because I was terrified. We were in the middle of worship, singing, reading. He bust in through that door like he knew what was going on. And you could just feel the darkness come into the room. We're all screaming. My mom locks herself in the bathroom, and each kid is on an arm and a leg just screaming at him, no, don't hit our mom, don't hit our mom, because things got pretty abusive at this point. And my mom locks herself in the bathroom, and he storms out with all her books, and he takes us with him to his work. And as the weeks went on, he took all her books, and he took all 5 kids with him to the job. And we're sitting out there like in the foyer doing nothing for hours while he's working in his office.
Sure.
And now my mom is by herself. She can't go out anywhere. She can't write a letter, can't receive a letter, can't make a phone call, nothing. She's just isolated. And it's a very, very challenging experience for her at this time.
Yeah.
But after like maybe 3 or 4 weeks of this, we came home one day, and my father dropped us off, and we told our mother, we said, hey, Mom, you wouldn't believe what we just saw. She said, what? We just saw all your books. And she said, my books? No way. Your father would have thrown those things in the trash. We said, no, he brought them to the job, and all the men are reading them at the job. And she was blown away because she was like, thank you, God, because God, you brought those books to a place where a woman couldn't go. Now, all those Islamic men at the job were reading Christian books. So they were reading all these Christian books that she packed. Some of them they threw in the trash.
Yeah.
They were like, God doesn't live in a sanctuary, a tent, because that's in the books of Moses.
Okay.
They throw it in the trash. But most of them ended up coming back to my mom's house. My dad didn't have nothing to do. He ended up getting a softer heart. He brought him back. And from there, he came up with another plan to do something different with us.
What's that?
I don't know. My mouth is just so dry.
Yeah,
right
take a
now.
drink, man. This is fascinating. I love hearing the dichotomy. I'm learning a lot about, like I said, I didn't have any background in any sort of Islam. So I'm able to learn a lot through this.
Yeah. So, my father came up with this plan. Him and my grandfather, they came up with this plan, his family. That side of the family. We had a worship, and it was a worship about Joseph, the story of Joseph in the Bible, young boy who was taken from his mom and dad, taken to a foreign country by himself. That was our last worship that we had. We didn't know that was going to be our last. My father came after work, and he said, come on, boys, grab your jackets. Let's go outside. Jackets. It's like 100 degrees outside. Why do we need jackets? And my mom was just looking at us, and she said, something's not right. And she said, guys, something's not right. And we said, Mom, don't worry. We'll see you back in a minute.
She said that to you.
She said that to us. And we said, don't worry, Mom. We'll see you in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Door closed. And our mom wouldn't see us again for at least 7 months.
Whoa.
And she wouldn't know where we were.
Did the sister, you had one sister?
Two.
Did they stay?
They stayed with my mom.
Okay.
So it was me and my twin brother
Mm-hmm.
and my older brother,
Mm-hmm.
3 of us. He went down to the market, bought some suitcases, and packed up our luggage and had tickets, and we were going to go on a plane to India because he came up with this plan with his dad and the family to have the boys go to an Islamic boarding school to learn Islam and educate us there in India, and while my mother stayed in Saudi with our sisters. This went on for 7 months, and my mom didn't know where we were. And so they had the imams. Those guys are equivalent to pastors in the church.
Okay.
The leaders of the masjid are called imams. They would knock on my mom's door, and they would say, you convert to Islam, and then you get to have your boys back. So this went on for months.
Wow.
Yes.
What's she saying to that?
She said no. Ultimately, no. Right.
Wow.
Right. Yeah. I'm a father. My son is 8 years old. He's the age that I was when I left my mom.
Yeah.
And I asked myself, if somebody was saying that to me, I would be like,
I'll say whatever you want to say to give him back.
yeah, it's hard.
Right?
It's difficult.
Yeah.
It's one of those moments where you really got to trust God. Do you believe in what you believe in or not? You know, the Bible says, Christ says, you know, you got to be willing to deny yourself, forsake mother, father, brother, sister, son, daughter, anybody. And if you don't love me first, that's what Christ says, then you're not worthy of being my disciple. And her faith was ultimately put on the line then because she had to choose between her boys for 7 months and Jesus. She chose Jesus, and she made the right decision because there was no way that she was going to get us back. It had to take God to bring us back. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So, okay, so that's what your mom's dealing with for
Right.
7 months?
Yeah.
What are you guys doing?
Great question. My father dropped us off in India. Now, we thought Saudi Arabia was a culture shock. India was times 10.
How so?
We got off the plane. We were in Bombay, India, and I never forget the smell. It smelled horrible, like dead animals and sewage.
Really?
Right? Oh, it was horrible. And we were just driving into the country, and we felt like a pipe busted or something. But the more we drove, we realized that this was just the city. It smelled. And we got there, and I'm walking the street, and the level of poverty there was just mind-blowing. Children out there with no clothes, begging for money, kids my age. I remember this girl, she had a leather whip like this thick, and she was whipping her back, cutting herself for money. I mean, she's my age.
People are paying her to do that?
What they do, if people feel sorry for her, they'll give her money. So they're trying to invoke your sympathy.
Got it. Okay.
I'm beating myself so
Yeah,
you can give me money.
yeah.
And they do that out there, you know. I've even heard of stories where mothers will inflict their children so that you can feel more sorry for them so you can get money.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, the poverty level is very bad. People squatting down in the public, old women, men, children, all squatting down in public using the bathroom.
Yeah.
Animals in the street, culture shock. So we were there for 7 months. I'll keep it short. We were bouncing around from village to village, boarding school to boarding school. My father left us, and he had a couple of people that we didn't even know kind of chauffeur us around different places.
Sure.
And come to find out, he was having an affair at this time, you know.
Your father?
Yep. And we was bouncing around from village to village, and it was just like me and my brother surviving out there. I didn't brush my teeth for 7 months. I had hundreds of lice in my hair. I used the bathroom. We would just go to the beach. We would just squat down, use the bathroom. I can tell you story after story of how we should have died out there, me and my brothers.
What do you mean? Just from dysentery, sickness, illness type
Sickness,
thing?
illness. One circumstance, I was in a school called Tudgeswater, and I was in my room, just a dirt floor.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so sick that I was just laid out on the ground. The whole time for 7 months I was there, the only English-speaking people that we met happened to be our roommates.
Mm-hmm.
One guy was from America, and the other guy was from Canada. They're about 15 years old. I'm 8 years old.
And they there for the same reason to
Islamic boarding school.
Yeah, okay.
Right. And I was so sick. The doctors there told me that I had like a malaria. They said, you probably got malaria. I remember I was so deathly ill. One of those teenagers picked me up, and they walked me for miles to the nearest doctor they can find in a neighboring village or town.
Mm-hmm.
And my brothers were following, and they placed me on this table. And I don't forget this part because it took about 8 people to pin me down, because when I saw the size of that needle, it looked like a sword. They stuck me right in the rear. You know, I'm an 8-year-old kid. But they said if I didn't have that, I would have died.
What, antibiotics or what?
I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
You know, I was 8 years old, and they said that I probably had malaria, and what they gave me was the medicine I needed to save my life.
Sure.
So that's just one story of, I don't know who that guy was. After that, shortly we left that school.
Oh, my.
You know, as a Christian, and this may seem far-fetched for people, but, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if those guys were angels. I really wouldn't.
Yeah.
You know, and God placed them there for us to save my life. We went through a lot of hard things over there, you know. I saw my older brother get beat by grown men. He used to have to fight to protect us all the time.
For what? Why?
Kids are always trying to fight us because we're American. We spoke English. And they'll say, America, you know, this kind of stuff. And my brother, he wasn't in school.
Is there a lot of, I mean, would you call it racism over there? Is that what's going on?
Maybe, I don't know. I was just young. I was 8. I turned 9. I just remember my older brother really had to be, he was only 1 year older, and he had to be like our dad.
Yeah.
He was like our protector. And he would always be fighting for me and my brother.
Still close with him?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get a little emotional thinking about him. He's like my dad.
Yeah.
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 He's a good guy. Yeah, so
Those experiences actually make you tighter with your brothers in a way?
there's nobody closer than me and my brothers, yeah. We go back. I went to basic training with some guys in the Army, too.
Okay. Yeah.
And even to this day, I'm close with those guys because we've been through that experience together, basic training, you know?
Yeah.
It's just when you go through something with somebody like that.
Adversity breeds
Right.
family, brotherhood.
That's what it does.
Closeness, yeah.
It does. And me and my brothers, we went through that unique experience together, and it was just us.
Yeah.
And but I believe God took care of us. There's no way 2 8-year-olds and a 9-year-old can survive in India by themselves for 7 months without God.
Is your dad checking in on you throughout this? I mean,
Periodically, he would make visits and check in for the places that we were at. And
your mom doesn't know you're going through this?
no, she's praying for us.
Yeah.
And she's actually praying that God will send an army to come save us at this time, because she's a woman in Saudi stuck. She has no rights.
Yeah.
And she's cursing God at this point.
Really?
Yeah, why'd you bring me here? You know, she's losing her children. This is a sore trial of faith.
But she was still able to say no when I'm sorry, they were like pastors. I forget that.
Right.
What are the pastors called?
Imams.
Imams. She was still able to say no when they came.
You see, because my mom was reading the scriptures, And she would read these scriptures, one in Jeremiah, and I forget the verse, and I didn't bring my Bible here, but there was a verse in Jeremiah that she read during this time, and she was so angry at God, she opened her Bible, and the book of Jeremiah said, about a woman named Rachel, and she was weeping for her children because her children were gone from her. But she read in that verse that God, and another passage in the scripture, that God will return her children back to her. So when she read that scripture, she identified, because she was weeping for her children, but she held on to the promise that God would bring her kids back. So it was a test of faith. It's either you're going to believe God's word or you're going to fold. And she decided to stand. And the amazing thing is not that she decided to stand, is that when you read God's word, you realize that he's the one that's standing with you. You're not standing alone. And so there's no mother, no parent that can muster up that type of courage. And that's why the scripture says faith comes by hearing, and hearing the word of God. In order for you to have faith, you got to listen. And so my mom was listening. God was speaking, and she was getting encouraged by that. It's like, you're down, you're in the fourth quarter, you got to hear the coach give you, you got to get pumped up by the coach. You got to get out there and do it. And that's the same thing I go through when I read God's word. I get pumped up that I can do this,
Yeah.
And so that's what happened. We were there for 7 months.
And how is it you end up making it back to her?
The army came.
Yeah?
The army came.
Tell me about that.
1990, Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. And for many people, Saddam was the bad man. But for my mom, he was an answer to prayer.
How so?
Because when he invaded Kuwait, there was instability in Saudi Arabia for my father's job. We had to leave the country. And so we had to get taken out of India, came back to Saudi Arabia. They had bomb sirens and stuff going off when we got there, got back, and we had to leave the country.
What was that? I mean, you heard the sirens. Did you see any acts of war?
I didn't see any acts of war.
Okay.
We just heard the bomb sirens and stuff like that going off.
Did you know what that meant?
Yeah, we did.
What were you feeling at that?
Scared. I was scared. It was intense.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I was so overwhelmed and happy to be reunited with my mom and my sisters again. Because by the time I came back, I was so emaciated and bony and blood stains all over my clothes, lice all over my hair, teeth yellow, didn't brush my teeth or nothing. And I came back. We were eating bone soup out there. I lived in huts made out of cow manure and hay. That's where I lived. Okay, me and my brothers would take baths in a well. 6 o'clock in the morning, we're dumping cold water on us, and there's fish in the well like this big swimming in there.
Really?
Oh yeah, but thank God we had a bar of soap. Zestfully clean. Yeah. So
you make it back to Saudi.
Yeah.
And you guys are leaving. You have to leave the country. Is that right?
Yeah.
And where are you going?
England.
Okay.
Yeah, we leave Saudi Arabia. My father ends up staying. So my mom and the kids leave because of the war, because of the danger. But my father stays. So
your father must have chose to do that. So in a way, I mean, he was there. He was protecting the family. He was getting you to safety.
Right.
And sorry to kind of back up a little bit.
No, it's fine.
Coming out of that Islamic boarding school.
Right.
When you came out of that, did you feel, were you becoming, would you say, more Muslim, or did that attract you to that lifestyle? Did it push you more towards your mom's lifestyle? I don't know if you understand the question.
That's a great observation, great question. You know what it did? And even as an adult now, I look back at it, and I said it backfired on my dad, because my mom taught us how to pray. And the experience that we had in India and Saudi Arabia was very negative. And here we are learning about Allah and Islam, but yet we're crying. We're being abused. We're missing my mom and my sisters. I wrote one letter. We wrote several letters to my mom. She only got one, and she still has it to this day. And we're asking, Mom, we miss our sisters. Can you please send me my He-Man toy, my Transformers?
Yeah.
I'm 8 years old.
Yeah.
I turned 9 years old over there.
Yeah.
And my impression of Islam was very negative because of that experience.
Mm-hmm.
But my mom taught us how to pray, and we would bow down in the mosque. And when you bow down with your head on the ground, you're supposed to speak Arabic, but we're praying to Jesus in the mosque, and we're asking God, we want to see our sisters again.
Yeah.
Save us. So that's a good question because, the fruit of that experience was bitter, and it really sent me down a wild path after that. Religion wasn't in my...
What do you mean?
When I came back to England and my parents divorced, I was pretty broken as a young kid. I've been through a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of abuse over there as well, and just a divorce. And growing up as a teenager then, I went to England for a couple years, single parent, my mom, and then we went back to United States, New York, and we're living in this dirty apartment, roaches and rats, but it's like a 5-star hotel compared to India. I mean, it's luxury. I grew up just listening to rap music and hip hop music, and that became my outlet for a lot of my pain. And I would beatbox and rap, and I started to do drugs, smoke weed and alcohol, and I got really steeped in that, very, very deep. And, it was just a cover up. A lot of the things that went on in my life as a young kid, and I just built up on that. And I quickly, in my teenage years, didn't think about God.
Cover up what? I understand the bad experiences, but
Yeah.
is it anger, pain, confusion? What do you mean cover up?
A lot of anger, a lot of pain. With what happened with my parents, what happened with me and my brothers. I didn't go to school. I left school in 2nd grade in Connecticut. I remember my teacher, Mrs. Fay, my class. It was cool.
Yeah.
I leave that, and then I'm not even in school in 3rd grade, 4th grade. I missed 3rd grade. I missed 4th grade.
Yeah.
That set me back, and I come back, and I'm angry. I have a lot of anger. I've always been an introvert. I'm not a type of person to talk about nothing. I bottle it in. I've always been quiet, and so I didn't know how to handle that, and I just held it all in. And I think my frustration and anger, my outlet was freestyling and rapping, and then I started to live that type of life that I didn't grow up to live, but I became that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I went to a dark place for the next, 15 years or something, almost.
Go there. Explain that to me. It sounds. I know you said you got into some alcohol, some weed. How deep does that go? If you don't mind talking about it.
No, you go as deep as you want, brother.
Yeah.
I go there. I started off smoking weed and then cigarettes in high school. Big time pothead, just big time pothead.
And this is all in England, or you're back in the U.S.
I'm back in the U.S. now.
I'm sorry, you said you're in New York.
Yeah. So I left England when I was about 11 or something. Came to Michigan after that, New York to Michigan. I'm in the U.S. And then I ended up going to California because my mom at that time, she remarried my stepdad, who was an Adventist pastor at that time.
Okay.
Seventh-day Adventist pastor. And my mom, she got her degree. She got her bachelor's degree in social work, and then she got her master's degree in social work at Andrews University.
Yeah.
And so she got her education. She was a single mom, 5 kids, got married. And my stepdad were growing up in this Christian home. And now, but at that time, I'm broken. I'm already angry.
Yeah.
I'm just rebelling.
Yeah.
I'm doing rap music, drugs, and I start going worse and worse and worse. By the time I get to California, I'm a pothead. I'm drinking. I go to the military after high school. The day I fly out to go to basic training or go to MEPS, I'm high on the plane. Okay. I don't know how I made it without getting tested, but I made it.
Yeah.
When I was in the military, I didn't smoke weed, but I drank a lot. And so alcohol became my coping mechanism.
Yeah.
But I think I wasn't even aware of what I was doing. I just thought I was just this hardcore rapper, you know, and I was this tough, hardcore street guy, rapping and freestyling. That was my identity. That's who I was.
Yeah.
It really was who I was.
Sure.
This is what I did.
Yeah.
And so drinking and all that kind of stuff, I started to experiment with drugs in the military. Go out with guys in the Navy at Pearl Harbor. I was there in Hawaii. Would do crystal meth.
Whoa.
Oh, yeah. I'll come back to PT, run 4 miles. I'm high on crystal meth, running in formation. Oh, yeah.
Whoa.
And then afterwards, I'm drunk and I'm starting to experiment with cocaine and ecstasy, and I'm just this real tough guy, right? I get out of the military, and, man, I've experimented with all kind of drugs.
Yeah.
Cocaine. And my twin brother, me and him, we're doing cocaine for like 6 years. And I'm doing it tough. I'm working at a warehouse. I'm working these little jobs that are just beating my body up, And I eventually end up on Vicodins and Oxycontins. And then I start smoking and doing Oxycontins and fentanyl patches, and I'm just hooked on that, for about 3.5 years. Yeah. I think I ran out of water here, but I'm all right.
Yeah. Brandon, you mind getting him some more water? So I want to ask another question about that. You said it's a coping mechanism. You said, you were angry, you're dealing with all these emotions. But so let's rewind. I mean, there was the divide between your parents. At some points your dad wasn't around. You go to England, come back to the U.S. He's not around. There was the time in India, where you're living in poverty-stricken life. You're sick. You're out of school for those years, so you're falling behind. I imagine when you come back to the classroom and you're that far behind, you're probably lost of confidence.
Right.
And maybe it's a combination of all that things, but I'm trying to get to the root of, like, what do you think it really was for you? Was it the really controlling lifestyle that your family lived at the time? What do you think? Maybe this is a dumb question, but is it all of those things combined, or was there something that you feel like, man, this is what I had to face and I had to deal with? This was my problem here. Do you understand the question?
If I'm understanding it correctly, for me, it was a combination of all those
Got it.
things.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, I was so angry that I was set behind. I'm a very type of person. I'm very particular. In order to learn this thing, I want to learn this thing first. Step 1, step 2, build a foundation.
Yeah.
Thanks. And I feel like I was very much set back in school, angry about that. Angry about
a little embarrassment.
Very embarrassed.
Okay.
I was.
All right. I understand.
was.
Yeah.
And then I end up coming back to school, and I end up being in 5th grade. I was supposed to be in 6th grade. But, I was very embarrassed, but once again, I didn't know I never talked about anything. I just held it in.
Sure.
Very embarrassed about that. Angry at the fact that, I didn't have a father in my life. My father wasn't there. He would visit maybe once a year sometimes. He would come to the United States and visit with us, and then that's it.
Yeah.
For the summer.
Sure.
So
it's a combination.
Combination.
You said it's all the things added up.
Right.
Pressure was too much.
Right.
Okay, so you're experimenting with all these drugs. You're out of the military. You and your brother are doing this for 6 years.
Right.
Now you're a pastor. What changed?
Man, after doing all the drugs for such a long time and rapping and living that life, it beat me up. Physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. It just beat me up. And I got to the point where I was so addicted to Oxycontins, I was going through withdrawals, that I realized that if I didn't have the drug in my system, I wouldn't be able to talk with anybody. I couldn't even drink water. My body chemically was so dependent on it, I couldn't function without it. My digestive system shut down for a month almost. I couldn't use the bathroom because the drugs affected me.
Whoa.
Holes in my clothes. I'm drooling on myself trying to go to the light rail so I could meet the guy to get some pills. They're very expensive too. Oxycontin is one of the most expensive drug habits you can have. And this was in the time before they changed the chemistry of the pill anyway, but it got to the point where I was so beat up, and in my heart, I wanted to get help, but there was no way out.
Yeah.
I was stuck. And my twin brother was stuck too. I was at my job at the time, and I was on workers' comp, disability. I worked at this warehouse for 10 years, operating a forklift, loading pallets and picking orders and stuff. And I was out of work for a while, and there's no way I could physically return. I was off of work for almost 2 years now. My body was broke. I'm picking up 50-pound buckets of paint, stacking them on pallets, 36 high. I could barely pick up my arm. I'm weak. It's 100 degrees. I'm cold sweating. Withdrawals, I can go on and on about withdrawals. I've broken bones. I've burned myself with fire and water, but withdrawals is the worst pain I have ever felt in my life.
Really?
Worst. Hands down. Hands down.
Worse than being sick in India?
Far worse.
Really?
Far worse.
Okay.
Withdrawals is a brand new kind of pain. You don't realize how the Bible says you're fearfully and wonderfully made. You don't appreciate the human body and the physiology until you mess with it. Then you realize how beautiful you were made. When I was going through withdrawals, it felt like somebody snipped 1 billion of my nerves, and I was so antsy, my bone. It felt like I was going through like a possession or something, cold sweating, I'm shaking. It's terrible, and every second seems like an eternity. And for you to go through a period where your body readjusts, it'll take. I mean, to go through the hardcore, it'll be like 2 weeks of no sleep, no eating, to go through withdrawals from opiates, and then even to this day, I'm not fully 100% recovered, normal as I should be, and that's years.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you notice now, if you don't mind?
Yeah, I mean, still, my digestive system is not where it needs to be internally. I think some of my nerves here, my face, even how my mind thinks, even how I see things, operate, speech, everything. Just some of the things.
Yeah.
The consequences.
So you said, I mean, this is how bad it gets. You said in your heart you wanted to get help. How did you end up finding help? How'd you get out of that?
Well, here's my conversion experience story.
Okay.
My mom at the time, she was having Bible studies at her house Friday night with my stepdad, who was a pastor. And she said to my twin brother, who was crashing out in my apartment on the couch, we're doing drugs. He had 2 daughters at the time. They would come over to Uncle T's place, my place, and see us do our drugs and live that life. I had microphones, kind of like how you guys got the podcast here. I had my studio.
Oh, okay.
And we called it The Dungeon. And we do our raps in there and drugs. My mom told my brother, she said, you're not bringing your daughters to church, so I want you to bring them to my house on Friday night, and I want to take them to church on Saturday. And so I was the only one who had a car. And my brother would drive in the front seat, my 2 nieces in the back. And Uncle T, in order for me to drive, I have to be high. Otherwise, I can't drive. So I'm driving my nieces to my mom's house on Friday night. When I get there, I go through the front door, and I'm broke. I have no money. So I'm going to mom's house to see what kind of leftovers she got, what kind of supplies she got in the cupboards, because I'm living a drug life, and I need food, right? So as I'm in the kitchen, and I'm looking for leftovers, and I'm just scrounging, I'm hearing in the living room people having worship. And they're talking about, praise God, thank you, Jesus, and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, man, these people are crazy, right? And then I'm just getting food. But then every Friday, the more I came to that house, the more things started to stir in my heart. Because I remember my mom used to tell me those stories in Saudi Arabia. And those amazing Bible stories like the 3 Hebrew boys and Joseph. And then I started to ask myself, as I hear these people in the living room talking about how good God is, I started to ask myself, you know what? I'm wondering if those Bible stories are just Bible stories, or maybe they can be true and they can help me. And I found myself sitting in the back row of that Bible study, me and my brother, because we would do drugs, and I would go to my friend's house the next day, and I find out that he died. He has RIP on his truck. I go to my next friend's house. He OD'd, and he died. And we're so stuck in this life that we're sniffing drugs on his picture with his wife the next day.
No.
Yeah. I knew I was dying. Me and my brother tried to get help. And we were so stuck in this life. And so when I went to that Bible study, it was like my only outlet of hope to save me. So I sat in the back row of that Bible study, and I'm high out of my mind, and I start hearing the word of God as the preacher is talking in the Bible study. And there was something about God's word that just started to give me hope. The coach started to pump me up, and I didn't even know it. That, hold on a second, I'm in this sad life, in bondage. One guy after the Bible study, he grabbed me on the shoulder, tight. His name was Lawrence. And he looked at me in the eye and he said, "Yo, T, man, oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man that puts his trust in him." And I remember thinking, if this guy don't get his hand off my shoulder, man, this guy's crazy. But I went back home, and he bothered me because I said, you know what? It's either this guy is crazy or he believes everything that's coming out of his mouth. And I went home, and I started to just scratch my head, and I used to say, you know, everybody at those Bible studies, they're pretty crazy, but you know what? There's something about them that I never got in the street, at my work. There's something different about them. And I started to think about my parents. I said, you know, they go through struggles, but why are they always smiling? Why are they always happy? I'm 29 years old, and I'm miserable. I'm mad. I'm going through things. And then it started to hit me. Maybe it's that Bible and the God that they believe in. Maybe he's giving them that glow. And maybe I need to get that. And that's what started to turn the wheels in my life. I went back to that Bible study, me and my brother. My twin brother, he went through experience when he gave his life to God first. That was huge for me because I say I'm the older brother. I'm 5 minutes older. You know, as a twin, that means a lot. I'm 5 minutes older, man. I'm 5 minutes older than him. I went to the Army. I'm the tough guy. But I'm in my room sniffing and smoking drugs. My twin brother's in the living room, and I hear him reading his Bible in the living room. I hear him humming hymns that my grandma used to sing because he's going through withdrawals, and he can't read anymore because his eyes are blurry. And he's going through hell, and his body is going through hell. And I've been through some hardcore physical things before, but withdrawals, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. He's doing it. 2 weeks, cold turkey, reading his Bible, hymns, 3 o'clock in the morning.
Just in the apartment.
In my apartment.
Not in a medical facility, just
in my apartment.
Whoa.
In the living room, while I'm in my room doing drugs. When that happened, I started to say, hold on a second here. I don't even know who Adam is. That's my twin.
Yeah.
We've been brothers our whole life. And that really shook me because I said, you know, if God could do that for him, what can he do for me? And that was the moment that really got me into a deep asking God to help me out. Now, I did drugs really tough. I couldn't do cold turkey. I had to go to rehab.
You did?
I led a lot of people astray. My influence I used in a very bad way. And a lot of friends, my brothers, got them smoking cigarettes and weed. But when I saw my brother go through that, I was going to go back to my job now because I was out of work for almost 2 years. I had a lawsuit against the company. Me and my coworkers were suing them. We were a bunch of angry dudes. Angry dudes. We're just angry about life.
Yeah.
So we're going to sue them. They knew it. But I had to go back to work because my disability time ran out. I can only milk it for so long saying I have back injuries and all these kinds of things, but really I'm a drug addict.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
And but it did cause my back to hurt for real.
Yeah. Sure.
I had to go back to my job, and I was in no shape to do the work. I was broken physically. I'm going to the Bible studies at this time. My brother is giving his life to God, my twin.
Yeah.
I go back to the job, but before I go back to the job, this is a Sunday night. Monday morning, I have to go back. Sunday night, I did the first thing, the first time I really did this in my life. I pulled out my little beige pillow, and I got on my knees in the night, and I just started praying to God. And as I prayed to God, I was very disrespectful to God. I was angry. I almost cursed him out. Where were you? Kind of deal. Why did all this happen to me? And before you know it, tears started coming down my eyes. I was crying like a baby. I'm not going to lie. I was crying like a baby. Snot, everything. Crying like a baby. I haven't cried like that my whole life. My uncle died, family died. I didn't cry at the funeral. But I cried like a baby this night. I cried. And I just poured out my heart, angry at God. And then I said to him, I said, you know what? My mom's been telling me to go to rehab. I said, if you could save my job. I had eviction notices on my apartment door. They're trying to kick me out. Marge, my landlord, she was like, I've been so good with you, Taariq.
Yeah.
You're going to get kicked out if you can't pay your rent.
Yeah.
And I said, if you can save my apartment and my life, I'll give my life to you, right? I'll go to rehab. That's what I said to God. That was my deal.
Yeah.
So Sunday night, I made that deal. Drug addict made that deal with God. If you can save my apartment, save my job, I will go to rehab, and I'll read my Bible, and I'll pray every day I'm there. I go to work on Monday morning. I meet with the HR manager, plant manager, and warehouse manager Monday morning. They say, okay, Taariq, you've been out of work forever. We got to bring you up to speed. So now I have to talk to Jennifer, the HR manager, and tell her I'm a drug addict and I need help. One of the most difficult things I've ever done in my life, to confess to my enemy. I've argued with this lady before.
Yeah.
I got a lawsuit against the company.
Yeah.
I have to tell her that I'm addicted to drugs. I'm very prideful.
Yeah.
I'm a hardcore rapper, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not weak.
Right.
But now I'm being real with myself. And so I go to the job and I say, hey, Jennifer, you got a second? Can I talk with you? She closes the door. I'm in there. And then she says, what's the deal, T? And I say, you know what, Jennifer, I'm addicted to pain pills, Oxycontins, and I need help. Man, after that, she looked at me and she said, T, it took a lot of courage for you to say that. I'm very proud of you. And she closed the door. The doors were already closed. And she said, you know what? I'm going to get on the phone and I'm going to call a place and the job is going to pay 80-something% for you to go to rehab. And you're going to keep your job. And I called my father later in Saudi. He paid the remainder. So the job paid like 85%. He paid 15% for me to go to rehab.
Wow. Okay.
That same day when I was in her office, she said, T, let's get on the phone. Let's get the ball rolling. Let's get the process started. I went to the room to get on the phone, talk to somebody. When I came back to her office, she was standing outside the door, and she looked at me and she said, T, while you were in there, I was praying for you. She said, it looked like you needed it. She closed the door and she said, you know, T, I know I can get in trouble for saying this. This is the HR director.
Yeah.
I know I can get in trouble for saying this, but I have to do what God tells me to do. She told me, while you were gone, T, I got baptized. I gave my life to God. The
No
HR
way.
director, yes way,
Yeah.
grabs on the top shelf of her cabinet a Bible. I got a lawsuit against her.
Yeah.
She grabs the Bible and she opens the book of Galatians and Ephesians and starts saying, T, reading the Bible to me, talking about how she gave her life to God for almost 2 hours. And she said, T, the Holy Spirit has been working in my life and he wants to work in your life. She closed that Bible and she gave me a hug and I hugged her. And I couldn't believe what was going on in that office.
Yeah. How did you feel? I mean, you walked in there, ashamed, embarrassed. You know, you
Right.
had to admit to this lady that you'd fought with, you know, that you have a weakness. How did it make you feel that she responded that way?
I was stunned.
Really?
I was stunned. I was stunned that she responded that way. And I was shocked because I felt so special. I felt like God orchestrated that whole thing. And I felt like he was there with me.
Yeah.
And that he's been waiting for me to really pray to him like I did that Sunday night. Even if I was angry at him.
Yeah.
He was like, I could take that.
Yeah.
And he was there for me that next day, even through the mouth of my enemy who became my friend. And when she hugged me and I gave her the hug, I was trying to be tough, but I had like a couple tears come down. I couldn't believe it because I felt like I never felt so special in my life. I tell people all the time, I felt like God stopped the sun, moon, and stars just to let me know that, man, Taariq, I've been waiting for you, man. I've been waiting for you. And from that day on, I went to rehab and my life changed. I went to rehab and I honored my deal with God. I told him I'm going to read my Bible and pray every day I'm there. So I brought my Bible to rehab. And boy, did my life change because of that. I brought my Bible to rehab, and that Bible has like become a limb, appendage, a part of me.
Yeah.
And I've never been the same since. That's what changed my life right there. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's an amazing story.
Yeah.
And then, so you're bringing the Bible to rehab. You're reading it every day. You make it through rehab. Everything changes. Is that when you decide to go to seminary?
Yeah.
Is it seminary you went to?
I went to, actually, while I was in rehab, let me share this with you. While I was in rehab, I was reading my Bible because I honored God. The first day, my twin brother, my two parents, and my twin brother and me driving me to rehab. We went to St. Helena, California, and Seventh-day Adventist Hospital, Napa Valley, beautiful on this mountain, beautiful country.
Yeah.
We went there. And I decided to honor my deal with God. So first day I checked into inpatient in the hospital. I said, okay, what am I going to read? Grabbed this lesson book, took me to John chapter 8, verse 36. And it said, if the Son therefore shall set you free, you will be free indeed. Man, that I literally cried.
What does that mean to you?
Everything.
Yeah.
I've been wanting freedom from my pain, abuse, divorce, anger, drugs. And the first Bible study I had was that promise, if the Son therefore shall make you free. I got a business card.
Yeah.
Probably in my wallet. I don't think I brought my wallet.
Yeah.
That's my theme on my business card.
Really?
As a pastor now. It's John 8:36. If the Son therefore shall make you free, you shall be free indeed. So that memory verse, that was it, man. I read my Bible every day. And it got to the point that while I was in rehab, people were knocking on my door and they were like, yo, T. I'll say, what's going on? Hey, can you teach me how to pray? I'm like, I'm learning how to pray myself, man.
Yeah.
But, I taught them about the Lord's Prayer. Next, people knocking on my door saying, hey, man, my daughter, my son got into an accident. Can you pray for them? Because I'm walking with my Bible everywhere.
Yeah.
And as I was in rehab, one guy looked at me and he said, man, I'm going to call you Pastor T. Look, right? They call me Pastor T in rehab.
Yeah.
So in rehab, the counselors were like, man, there's something very spiritual about you, man. Like, what's going on? And I realized that the more I was just reading my Bible, and I was just giving them what I was receiving,
Yeah.
And this is something new in my life. I realized that it wasn't just me. I was going through a process of change. And others were noticing that.
Yeah.
I got out of rehab. And the reason why I brought that up, because it was instrumental in my calling. I went to a lot of AA and NA meetings, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, and frequently, sometimes I still go.
Okay.
Because I love those places, places of recovery and change and power. It was there that I first had to sit in front of a lot of people. And I was so shy that we had just a light shining on me, and the rest of the room was dark. And I had to share my story like I'm sharing on this podcast, right now.
Okay, yeah.
And I would just kind of share my story about, my pain, my past, and why I did drugs and stuff. And by the time they turned on the light, I realized that there were people that connected with my story. And I realized that God gave me a gift to share.
Yeah. You fell in love with that, being able to help people.
That's it.
Yeah.
When I got back home to that Bible study with all the weird people at the Bible study, the crazy people, right?
Yeah.
They became my crew.
Yeah.
They became my best friends.
Yeah.
And they kind of ambushed me when I got back from rehab. They were like, hey, T, tell us your story. And then my parents got out of the front seat, and I didn't expect it. They had me sit in the front seat, and I just shared my story for the Bible study. From then, it was pretty emotional, intense, because it's still fresh for me, at that time.
Yeah.
And there were people there, and they started to invite me to come speak to different churches just to share my story.
Yeah.
Me and my brother, we tag teaming it, and that's what we did.
Yeah.
We just shared our story, how God gave us the victory, how his word gave us encouragement and hope and changed our life. From there, my stepdad started doing preaching classes with us. We're witnessing, we're going door to door, we're praying with people. And then I end up getting laid off my job, my warehouse job. And then I end up, I'm going fast now. I don't want to take too much of your time.
No, this is great.
I end up hooking up with my wife, the girl that I had a crush on when I was in like 9th grade.
Really?
I was in school with her since 5th grade. And she used to get on my nerves in 5th grade.
Yeah.
But by the time we got to 9th grade, I had a crush on her. We left. She was in Michigan. We were in Michigan together. That's when my mom went to school.
Okay.
Her family went to Florida. My family went to California.
Yeah.
When I was in the Army, I talked with her a couple of times on the phone, but I hadn't seen her in 15 years. And I thank God, because it was not until I was clean that I reconnected with her.
Got it.
She was 25 years old. She got her master's degree. She never drank in her life. She would have been completely turned off from me if she would have seen me like that.
Yeah,
how it was.
Sure.
But I was cleaned up. I met God. My life was changed. And then I reconnect with her. She wasn't on Facebook for years. She pops up on Facebook all of a sudden. And then we reconnect. We start praying together from California to Florida. I tell people all the time, I've dated girls. I've been to bars and movies and all these things. But there was something about that spiritual component of connecting with my future wife. We were not in physical contact, but we were praying together, reading the Bible together, talking with each other, and we eventually got married after that. And from there, I got laid off from my job. She got asked to work at Pacific Union College. It's a Seventh-day Adventist college.
Okay.
Pacific Union College is in Napa Valley. It's on the same mountain, right next to the Adventist hospital where I went to rehab.
Yeah.
So you're literally driving by the hospital where I went to rehab to go to the college.
Yeah.
I go to college there. I want to do like archaeology. I love history. I love Indiana Jones. I grew up watching Indiana Jones, man. So, archaeology and history, like battlefield archaeology or something crazy like that. I love stuff like that. You ask my son today, he'll tell you all about Greeks and Romans, and he's
no kidding.
He's 8 years old. He's
we'll have to have him on sometime.
Yeah, he's amazing. He's amazing. But let me speed this up. So
yeah, you're good.
I literally pass the hospital where I went to rehab. I go to Pacific Union College. I'm running from this, and I end up working with the chaplain at the hospital where I went to rehab, the same chaplain that influenced me, and I'm talking to the people in rehab, the same place that I went to now, about my story.
Yeah.
switched my major. I ended up doing a theology degree, getting a theology, my major is theology. And I ended up graduating from there. But before I graduate, in March 23rd, 2014, I'm back in that hospital. But this time in rehab, I was on the third floor looking out the beautiful window view, the vineyards in Napa Valley. I don't know if you've been to Northern California. It's amazing. Beautiful. And that was so instrumental in my recovery is nature. From city life to just, where's everybody at? Just you can just hear the birds.
Yeah.
It's very, very instrumental in recovery. This time I'm back in the hospital. I'm not on the third floor. I'm on the 5th floor. Because behind me in that room, looking at the same view, my son is being born in that hospital.
It's so cool.
Yeah. So I tell people all the time.
Does that have special meaning to you?
Oh, man. I said my son was born in the hospital where his dad was born again.
That's cool, man.
Yeah. My wife was in there and my son, and I said, man, there was no way I would have imagined this, that I would have married the woman of my dreams.
Yeah.
And I have a beautiful boy in this hospital. We leave California. I go to Michigan to get my master's degree. And I end up going to the same place where my mom first moved to when she was a single parent with 5 kids to Michigan.
Yeah.
Same apartments and everything.
Really?
Yeah.
So cool.
And I get my master's degree from the same place where my mom got hers. And I graduate from the seminary, and I have no idea where I'm going. I just so happened to have an open interview with a guy from Iowa, a ministerial director from Iowa.
Yeah.
Iowa was not on my list. If you asked me where Iowa was on the map, I couldn't even tell you.
Ohio?
Ohio.
Yeah. Is that the place with the potatoes?
Yeah. Idaho. Yeah. And we end up getting picked up by the Iowa, Missouri Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. So I graduate. My daughter was born in Michigan.
Yeah.
And then we leave and we move to Nebraska, and I'm pastoring in Iowa. And then my youngest daughter was born in Nebraska. So I got California, Michigan, and Nebraska.
Yeah.
Now I'm in Iowa.
Yep.
Yeah. And I've been in Des Moines now for a year.
What a cool story, man.
Yeah.
I'm super glad that I met you, ran into you.
Yeah.
That we got to have this conversation.
Me too.
So we've been at this for a while. This is by far the longest, and I love it.
I'm
This is
sorry,
no,
man.
don't be sorry. This is a great conversation. I do want to cover just a couple more things real quick. One is Seventh-day Adventists. I mean, we talked a lot about Islam. We talked about your conversion story. And can you give us? I've been around. I think I worked with a Seventh-day Adventist.
Yes.
Super nice guy, and all I really remember was I believe he was a vegan and didn't drink caffeine, and they practiced the Sabbath where they didn't do any electronics or anything. I believe it was from Friday night at dark until Saturday night at dark. I believe if I remember correctly.
Yeah, you got it.
What are some hallmarks? It's a Christian denomination.
Yes.
What are some hallmarks of Seventh-day Adventists? I mean, there's got to be more to it than just being vegan and
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
What can you tell me about it real quick?
Well, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, I think historically we could do some research on that. It was born out of an Adventist movement. So in the 1830s to 1844, there was a coming together of all kinds of Christians from all kinds of denominations, Methodists and Baptists and Christians. And they all believed that Jesus was coming in 1844 from a man named William Miller.
Yeah.
From that movement, obviously Jesus didn't come in 1844. So those Christians from all those denominations, they prayed about it, and then they came together. And it was based on the prophecies of the book of Daniel and Revelation.
Okay.
And so it's a very Bible-based understanding of Christianity. And what a lot of people don't realize is Seventh-day Adventists were birthed out of this Protestant movement of all these Protestant denominations that came together to form the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Okay.
So a lot of the leaders of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, for instance, Methodists, Baptists, Christians, they all came together and formed the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And it's based on the prophecies of Daniel and Revelation, like I said.
Okay.
And it comes from a biblical understanding of what God's message is right before Jesus comes. And the emphasis is found in the book of Revelation chapter 14. In Revelation chapter 14, it depicts Jesus coming on a cloud with a sickle. And right before that, there are three angels that have messages that have to be proclaimed right before Jesus comes. So the Seventh-day Adventist denomination find their mission as an end-time movement, hence the term Seventh-day Sabbath Adventist. Adventist means we're waiting for the advent of Christ, the second coming of Christ.
Okay.
We're waiting. We believe that Jesus is coming really soon.
Yeah.
And we can see the signs of the times that are happening. And even what's going on in our world today, we believe are shown in the Bible.
Yeah.
And this tells us that those three angels' messages are in the Bible. Those are the last messages that are preached right before Jesus comes. So that is the mission of the church.
Yeah.
Seventh-day Adventist Church and three angels. We used to have on our logo, and I don't know why we done away with it, but on the Adventist logo, it used to be a world and three angels going across the globe.
Okay.
And it's to signify the three angels' messages in the book of Revelation chapter 14.
Yeah.
So that's a little quick synopsis historically.
Yeah.
And one of the things that people don't focus on, Sabbath is extremely important. It makes us unique. In the book of Genesis, God created the world, and on the seventh day he rested. And the seventh day is still the same seventh day that exists today, which is Saturday, the seventh day of the week. In the book of Genesis, it says that God blessed the seventh day. He sanctified it. He made it holy. And he rested on that day. So the seventh day has been sanctified, which literally means he set it apart and made it holy because God rested. And as Christians, when we read the Bible in the book of John chapter 1, Hebrews chapter 1, Colossians chapter 1, there may be somebody listening who knows what I'm talking about.
Sure.
Those passages clearly indicate that it was Jesus who created the world. Jesus is the creator. So get this. Jesus, after he created the world in 6 literal consecutive days, rested on the seventh day. He blessed the seventh day, and he sanctified it. He set it apart and made it holy. It's different from the other days. So this is what the Creator did before sin, before things got crazy in this world, before it was dark.
Yeah.
This is when he, like God says, everything was very good. So this was in the world. And so as a Seventh-day Adventist now, we believe in keeping not 9 commandments, but all 10 commandments. Most people don't have a problem with thou shalt not kill or thou shalt not commit adultery,
Yeah.
or thou shalt not steal.
Right.
9 commandments are okay with most Christians, but it's that 4th one that was written by the finger of God in stone that they have a problem with.
Sure.
Yeah.
But
But as an Adventist, we believe in all 10 commandments and that they're still valid.
got it.
Yeah.
That's an excellent explanation, and which I at some point I want to go way deeper on this, so I think I might have to have you back
Anytime, brother.
if you would.
Anytime.
Because there's a lot of questions I didn't even get to, but I want to wrap up with this.
Please.
You've been through drug problems. You got help. You got out of it. I believe now you minister. I mean, you said you still go to AA and things like that, and that's a big part of your ministry.
Yeah.
I don't know who's going to listen to this.
Yeah.
If somebody's listening to this and they have a problem with any kind of addiction, there's a lot of them out there. And they want to make a change. What do they need to do?
The first thing that I would recommend to them as a pastor and as a Christian, I'm going to tell you to go straight to Jesus.
Okay.
And this is what I'm going to say about that, especially when you're talking about any problem, go to Jesus.
Okay.
If you have an addiction, go to Jesus.
What does that mean?
There's a verse in the Bible that says, "Come unto me, all ye that are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest, and you will find rest unto your soul." Now, I like that verse because he didn't say rest unto your mind, rest physically, emotionally. You need that.
Yeah.
He said unto your soul. Now, without getting too technical or deep, I'll just suffice it to say that that's the deep, deep part. It's a spiritual healing that we all need.
Okay.
And many of us find different outlets to fill that hole. It can be sports, it could be shopping, it could be athletics, it could be drugs. So we can be quick to look down on the drug addict, but we ourselves are trying to fill the hole with something else.
Something else, yeah.
But may I just suggest humbly that only God can fill that hole. So whatever it is, only He can give you the rest to your soul. And so that would be the first step. And once that internal healing begins there in the deep part, emotionally, mentally, physically, all those things fall into its proper and natural place and order. And the healing is the way it's supposed to be. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great, man. Thanks so much for coming on. I had a great time.
Thanks for having me, man.
I learned a lot about a lot of different topics and subjects, but I do want to have you back because there's a lot more questions I need to ask you.
Anything,
and we
brother.
just need more time.
Anything, anytime. It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Do you want to tell people where your church is if they want to come check it out?
Absolutely. Yeah, I have a church. It's 2317 Watrous Avenue in Des Moines, off of Fleur Drive, right next to the airport. Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Yeah.
Come check us out.
Yeah.
Not on Sunday. You can check us out on Saturday.
Check it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I want to come check out a service.
Anytime, brother.
Yeah, man.
Anytime.
Let's do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. 1050. We're there. Out there. Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Appreciate
We're done.
it.